Well, we'll get to Biden's awful farewell address in a second, but he said in his speech that he wants a smooth transition of power, and he's rooting for President Trump because he loves America. That's what he said. He loves America. That was a bald-faced lie. Of course, we know that the Biden team has laid the groundwork to slow down President Trump. According to the Daily Mail, which just published their exclusive report about Biden's sneaky and dirty plot to slow down President Trump on day one. I'm just going to go through this because it's deeply disturbing, and we knew that some of this was already happening, but now we have confirmation from the Biden administration. So President Joe Biden enacted a series of roadblocks to slow down Donald Trump's agenda during the president-elect's first days in the White House, despite his steadfast promise to cooperate with the incoming administration. The moves include changing the order of succession in federal agencies so Biden's staffers will be in charge before Trump's nominees can be confirmed, and enacting federal rules that will take the new administration months to overturn. Also doled out billions in federal funds on clean energy initiatives and other Biden priorities. So let's unpack this, okay? President Biden, in an interview with USA Today last week, laughed when news outlets basically asked him about Trump trying to overturn his initiatives. He's like, I think he's going to have a problem with that. Trump's going to have a hard time undoing a lot, I think. So what did he know at the time? Well, of course, he knew at the time that he had already put in place a number of safeguards to make sure that Trump couldn't undo a lot of his stuff. Biden has orders of succession. So he's updated the order of succession at several federal agencies, rearranging the reporting order to ensure that officials friendly to his policies are in charge while Trump gets his cabinet nominees confirmed. When a president leaves office, all of his cabinet nominees and political appointees resign so the incoming president can put his own people in place. Okay, so basically not going to do that then. Not going to let that happen.
Not going to work here anymore.
Spending. Let's talk about the money that's being spent right now. So all of the dollars, President Biden is trying to spend as much as federal funds as possible from his 4 major legislative accomplishments so he can dictate where the taxpayer money goes, according to this report, instead of leaving it to be spent by Trump. They're spending as much money as possible for the American Rescue Plan, the infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. The 4 laws, more than $4 trillion of government spending. Unbelievable. And so the White House is saying that the administration has already awarded 98% of this funding. They've just flown it out there. They're just pushing it out there. $288 billion in infrastructure funding that won't be available until in the fiscal year 2025. $14 billion for the Inflation Reduction Act after fiscal year 2025. Another $10 billion for the CHIPS funding for the fiscal years 2025 and 2026. So all of this money, the Biden administration has allocated. All of it.
Against better judgment of pretty much anyone who studies economics. Ron Paul says in his book, anytime consumer spending and inflation is too high, the government has to cut spending too, or no fix-it measure will be effective. And so they don't care. They don't care that this is basically a tax on the middle class. So
no, They don't care at all. So, I mean, just think about the amount of spending that they're putting in place here. I mean, it's so deeply troubling. And there are major warning signs right now in this economy. We talk about the commercial real estate sector. The amount of vacancies right now in the commercial real estate sector is unbelievable. The Trends Journal just published their big forecast for the year, and they had in there, this is a major bomb about to go off because of all of these loans that are coming due from the commercial real estate side, and you have all of these vacancies. So all of these offices are just they're 40% vacant right now, just sitting there, and these loans are coming due. What's going to happen to those banks when all of them start hitting with these commercial loans? There's a major recession hitting the United States here, and I think Trump is not going to have any choice but to. I mean, he's going to be handed a giant bag full of garbage, basically, on the economy. We saw the consumer spending numbers or the consumer price numbers from
Inflation
December.
in December was up 2.9% from the previous year. It's still been circling this 3% number. Now, that's every month. In 2024, our prices got higher by an average of 3%. Every single month. So if you thought in January 2024 life was expensive, it only proceeded to get worse for most of us, for all of us.
So that's major pieces, but let's talk about the federal law firing people. This is a big piece of it because when we talked about DOJ, we talked about, getting rid of these departments and cutting these employees, these federal employees. So this, to me, is one of the most underhanded things that Biden has done now to basically, to slow down President Trump. Many of the rules being made in a way that would take an act of Congress or a new rule to undo them. One of those Biden rules is tied to federal workers that he just put in place. Trump wants to have the power to easily fire federal workers, which has brought fears that he will fire career employees who have different political ideologies. During the final weeks of his first term, Trump issued an executive order creating a new class of federal workers known as Schedule F. These staffers would be exempt from the country's traditional merit-based civil service program, and opponents argued it was an attempt to hire and fire people based on their political loyalty. Well, Biden came in, he rescinded that order. He then took it one step further in the spring when he issued a new rule that strengthens existing rights for career federal workers, making it clear that civil service protections cannot be taken away from employees unless they give them up voluntarily. So the difficulty in firing employees is going to be very, very bad. Very, very difficult for President Trump to come in and get rid of some of these people. And we a couple of weeks ago here on the show, we talked about, is it called burrowing? Do you guys remember the term that there was
yes.
I think Politico was talking about how these Biden appointees, these Obama appointees were going to start burrowing into these different agencies.
Yes.
They leave sort of the appointed positions and they burrow in.
Right.
And that's a big concern. So a lot of these Biden Obama types are going to try to burrow into these different agencies and try to undermine the agenda. Anyway, deeply troubling. So we had the farewell address last night. What a disaster that was.
Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, no, the interview you did yesterday, I can't remember the guy's name right off, the CIA whistleblower, he talked about that, where like these people like burrow in and they don't care who the president is. They just wait 4 years and then they come back out. Like this, it's why you can't get this like deep state agenda taken care of, is because they just hide and wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like prairie dogs.
Right.
Well, as you know, the war against free speech is in full swing. Rumble, a leader in defending this fundamental human right, recently joined X to sue a cartel of advertisers and ad agencies who conspired to block ad revenue from going to those platforms. Even Dunkin' Donuts didn't want to advertise on Rumble because of what they called right-wing culture. As a way to rally around these issues, Rumble recently launched Rumble Premium, an ad-free viewing experience with some great perks for both viewers and creators. Upgrade to Rumble Premium today and support free speech. The tides are turning, my friends. Go to rumble.com/premium. Use the code redacted to get $10 off. That's rumble.com/premium. And use that code redacted to save $10.
Well, President Biden's farewell speech was full of hypocrisies, but I'm not sure he even knew it or understood. He was clearly focused on just reading the teleprompter and getting through it. But even the lone conservative voice on CNN shut down all of the sycophants who tried to speak out on behalf of it and said, this is a terrible speech and this is the legacy he will leave. Watch Scott Jennings on CNN.
I think the way he's leaving office has been, frankly, pretty terrible. He's going to be remembered for a few things. But politically, it's mostly for when he was vice president, he and Obama sort of ushering in the Trump era initially. And then as he's leaving office as president, bringing back Trump and Trumpism stronger and more popular than ever. Today, Biden has like a 61% disapproval, and Trump is over a 50% approval and more popular, and his ideology is more popular than it's ever been. If everything you say is true, the Democrats should have had no trouble getting reelected in this election, yet they were.
It's an issue of a communications failure.
I know, and for Democrats, it's always been about communication and no introspection about the policies that led to him leaving office as one of the most unpopular presidents. When I watch this tonight, I remain astonished that he, his family, and other people around him thought he could ever run for another term. I mean, there's no way he could serve another 6 months, let alone another 4 years. The fact that they pursued that farce for as long as they did, to me, remains one of the most astonishing things about this term. So,
even the liberals there who want to say something were just like, yeah, we can't say anything against that. And
no, but that his family would have allowed him to get this far. I mean, watching that speech last night, you're like, this is your farewell address. Like, this is your farewell address to the nation. And you're a mess. You're an absolute disaster. You thought you could have gotten through another 4 years. Everyone knew you couldn't, but you kept it hidden from all of us.
Even he looks uncomfortable and not sure that he's going to get through it. But we're going to watch some of the more notable things that he says. CNN, even without Jennings, is admitting that the Biden legacy is leaving a mess. Look at this headline. They say that Biden warned of oligarchs, but some officials worry he may have created one because he snubbed Elon Musk and Tesla so many times that he's made a dangerous enemy. Now watch some of the hypocritical things that he says. Specifically, I kind of screamed at the television when he warned about oligarchies. Watch.
That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before.
Okay. He who concentrated power in the hands of Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and asked social media to downrank and censor anything that may have been against the biopharmaceutical complex. He's worried now about oligarchs. When he enabled them, he wielded those oligarchs, the existing oligarchs, we're going to name them soon. He bent them over the knee and made them do what the Biden administration wanted them. But now it's so rich that he's worried about them. Here's where he warns about how these oligarchs have promised to stop censorship. And he says, this is a problem. Watch.
You know, his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit.
Just like you did, sir, Mr. President. That's exact. I was so outraged at that comment. So you're trying to draw similarities between Eisenhower's warning of the military-industrial complex upon leaving office to the tech-industrial complex, which you worked hand in glove. You built a backdoor portal to go into Facebook and to Twitter to censor, malign individuals who didn't agree with your COVID policies, with your masking policies, your lockdown policies, all of your biopharmaceutical policies around vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
Absolute garbage and infuriating. And then he's talking about, misinformation. He's worried about now, oh my God, Facebook is pulling back on fact checkers. Fact checkers, which we have talked about on the show, have direct connections with the intelligence state, right out of the CIA. Yes. Fact checkers. Yeah. So you're worried about the rise of the tech, some sort of a tech industrial complex that you worked hand in glove to build?
Also, I want to get a little bit theoretical here, but I think that most communication theorists would agree that the truth is usually not drowned out by lies. In fact, just the opposite. John Stuart Mills famously said that in a free information exchange, the truth will rise. But that means we have to be free to hear everything in order to parse out the truth for ourselves. There should never be somebody there gatekeeping information and saying what is true and what is not. That was also one of the tenets of Thomas Jefferson, free information exchange. So he's saying the truth is out there, but we are too stupid to know it because there are too many people screaming lies and we can't tell for ourselves. So that's what he thinks. That's what Democrats think of the average person, is that they cannot think for themselves and they need these big brother gatekeepers to tell us. And I reject that wholeheartedly. That's not to say, though, that I'm completely comfortable with this oligarchy. It's just not that I think that Democrats did any better. I am concerned about these sort of tech sycophants that are circling around Trump right now in the Trump administration when they had worked against him before. We saw that at least with Mark Zuckerberg. We saw that with Amazon downranking books that were critical of Democrats. So now that so the Daily Mail is reporting that these 5 oligarchs, we're going to call them, are going to be present at the inauguration. And so I made a game of it on X to see if we can sort of make these into Game of Thrones figures, because you should always be worried about the people that are surrounding power and have an aim to it that may be antithetical to what the aim of the general populace is. So, we've got Zuckerberg, we've got Musk, we've got Sam Altman, we've got Bezos, so I'm making this fun game. Please ring in. But at the same time, I want to reject this revisionist history of the Biden administration. I'm also just worried about this concentration of power, these sort of sharks circling the Trump administration. How do you feel about it?
I was concerned about it. I mean, the idea that Elon Musk, who has these big government contracts and launches these satellites into space and has this sort of cushy relationship with that. I've been deeply disturbed about the Palantir connections, of course, with J.D. Vance and, Peter Thiel and all of that. We've had Whitney Webb here on the show where we've gone into detail about that. Remember that these companies were born out of the intelligence state. Google started as a contract with the CIA. So,
but notice there's no one from Google here.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why there's no one from Microsoft there either.
No one from Microsoft, one from Google.
But Tim Cook from Apple I think he donated $1 million for his inauguration, for Trump's inauguration. So I don't know. It's deeply troubling because we think we have free speech in this country, and it's whatever gatekeepers. We see that with Elon Musk right now. I mean, so
let's look at these 5 faces again and think like, okay, they bent to the will of the Democrats. Are they now saying they completely are pro free speech? Are we now trusting them because of the platform in which we decided to reject the Democrats? Like, I don't know. That doesn't feel comfortable either. We can't be what they call the woke right here, where we're like, well, as long as it's not Democrats, we're for it, right? That's not what we're about here on Redacted. We're independents. So let us know, and also let us know how you feel about Elon Musk as Tyrion Lannister, because Philip vehemently rejected him as Ned Stark. He said,
he's not Ned Stark.
I told you what I thought about it.
Yeah. You didn't ring in on Tyrion Lannister. He's like a game player. I don't know. Is that one okay?
No, that's because I already said I think he's kind of a little whiny. He reminds me of a Joffrey, just a spoiled rich kid that thinks he's tough, but just whines. And
I've heard him as Lord Varys. Anyway, this is a fun game, but I don't want to alienate anyone who didn't watch Game of Thrones.
Watch Game of Thrones. Also, where's Vivek? Vivek Ramaswamy's disappeared.
No.
Where is he?
Well, I assume he'll be there, but he doesn't represent any one platform in the same way. He doesn't wield any power over us at this point in time. I don't feel like he's one of the oligarchs that could, I don't know, put his thumb down.
Somebody get that guy a platform then.
Right.
We got to complete the set. Can he take over Blue Sky maybe? I don't know.
We need
Blue Sky homed all these pedophiles now. It's funny where all the pedophiles left X, I guess, or a lot of them, and they went over to Blue Sky. So there's been a number of outings of pedophiles on Blue Sky, a platform that we will never use on this show. Well, the same man who had spot-on accuracy about Trump's assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania before it happened is back again with a troubling new message about a massive assassination attempt on President Trump in Washington, D.C. in some capacity. So I know people are like, wait, I can't believe you're going to tell this story. Well, it's shocking. Here was this pastor back in March of 2024, okay, a full, March, April, May, June, July, about 5 or 6 months before the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. Here he was, spot on, telling exactly what was about to happen. Watch. This is March.
I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum. And I saw he fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking people say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw people interceding when I saw him winning the presidency through great. The Lord showed me it would go clear into the summer. Great persecution would come on him through the judges and through the law and all these people trying to sue him and all this stuff. But there would be a stop to it, and there things would start to break free come toward the fall. And then I saw him winning the election through the Patriots coming out and voting, and then there will be a great economy crash.
So we haven't seen the great economy crash just yet. And I believe that that's coming. I absolutely believe that's coming based on the data. He also talked about Trump losing his shoes. Remember that? Like during the event, like he lost his shoes as well. Like this guy. Okay. I mean, it's when you hear that, it's jaw dropping. Here he said this in March, a full few months before it actually happened. Well, now Pastor Biggs is issuing another grave warning, claiming that he's seen a vision of a massive sort of orchestrated attack, a coordinated attack with multiple different men targeting Trump's inauguration and some of his properties, whether it's Trump Towers or Bedminster or Mar-a-Lago, we don't know. He talks about trucks being filled with massive amounts of fertilizer hidden in underground garages, poised to strike. Okay, I'm just sort of setting it up. I'm going to play it for you, and you make your own determinations of this. Watch.
It all started, I was just worshiping and just praying like I normally do, y'all. And all of a sudden, it was like, poof. And I told my wife, I said, get the phone. You got to record it. I could see, and it was the vision was putting all out in front of me. And I saw farming equipment. I saw massive farming equipment that was, it looked like on the East Coast, this farming equipment was. And there were silos. And the Lord said, I want you to focus on fertilizer. And all of a sudden, it was like everything was coming at me very fast. And I could see these men buying lots of fertilizer since this summer over the course of quite a while. It looked like I could see. So you're not able to see the vision. So I have to describe what I saw. I forget, y'all. So bear with me. I saw trees. I saw leaves on the trees. I saw the summer grass growing. It was hot outside. And I saw these men collecting fertilizer through different places so that they would not be detected. Okay? It was like different locations buying fertilizer in bulk as much as they could without drawing suspicion. That's the way I would say it. Massive dump trucks with separation of in the back of these dump trucks, separation with 50-gallon drums, all filled with different kind of chemicals to make what was happened in Oklahoma City. I saw these men with these vests on in the front cab of the truck, vest on, and they had explosives on these vests. And there was 2 men in the truck. And they took the truck and they used it to go through police barricade and military barricades in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Someone in our chat room says, Karen Ann says he also prophesied about Vegas and New Orleans and that they'd happen on the same day. Okay. So anyway, that's that. The FBI, the Secret Service, Capitol Hill Police say they have multiple credible threats and they have ramped up to high alert status. They're putting additional staff on hand because of this. The FBI, of course, like last week, warning about major threats right now in the United States. So what do they know? What will they share it with the American people? Anyway, we're sharing that with you. You can take it as you want. We could all sort of pray and make sure, come together as, as a mental collective here and sort of pray that nothing happens to our country. That's something powerful that we could all do and send our energy in that direction. So there.
I believe, without getting too, spiritual, that there are many levels of existence, and some people experience time linearly and some people do not. And some people can see a probability of things happening. And I think that all of us can affect that probability with our own prayer, our own meditation, our own intention. And so I don't think that anything like this is a foregone conclusion. And so I think that, there's a lot of proof that people can feel into different probabilities of the future. So I don't think that any of us should be too scared about that. Let us know how you feel.
Yeah, one person in the chat saying this guy is a charlatan. Maybe he is. It's hard to argue, though, when you have video from March.
Yeah, with a very specific prediction.
Laying out specifically what happened. Okay. Yeah. So who knows? But anyway, it's out there and you can do with it what you want.
Right.
One of my favorite traditions is choosing New Year's resolutions. My birthday is New Year's Eve, so every year I get excited about setting new goals, tackling new and exciting challenges, like working on something new, learning something new, and I challenge all of you this year to learn something new. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses. That's right, more than 40 free online courses. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, the stories of the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church with Hillsdale's College free online courses. Personally, I'm enjoying Hillsdale's course called Introduction to Western Philosophy. In this 14-lecture online course, you'll explore the works of the most important philosophers of the West, Plato, Aristotle, Nietzsche, as they wrestle with the fundamental questions that all human beings are called to answer. The course is self-paced so that you can start whenever and wherever you want. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/redacted to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/redacted to enroll today for free. hillsdale.edu/redacted.
Well, in response to the TikTok ban, that's not easy to say.
No.
Let me try it again. In response to the TikTok ban slated to take place over the weekend, young people are downloading Red Note, and it's kind of a joke's on you to the government and the censorship regime. So the government's excuse to ban TikTok is that it is Chinese, even though it's not. Red Note is actually Chinese. It's owned by two private citizens. It's not owned by the Chinese government, but that's still the excuse that the American government has used to take it from our app store. The irony here is that the ban on TikTok, people are calling themselves TikTok refugees. Like, where do I go now, right? And I'm not going to go to Zuckerberg's platform. I'm not going to go to Musk's. What do I do? And so they are now going to a legitimately Chinese social network, and it's opening their eyes to government propaganda. Now, we all know that the TikTok ban had nothing to do with China. Everything to do with Israel. Once the Free Palestine conversation started to rise up on TikTok, the American government took action and went after it. Well, here is Red Note.
Also called, the Little Red Book, which could be construed as Mao's Little Red Book. Right?
Yes, yeah. Indeed. So it's a little bit like, hey, you don't get to tell me, I'll see for myself about China. Two unintended consequences have been showing up in this universal energetic law that what you resist persists. One, not only is there anti-Israel content there, even though the owners are reportedly pro-Israel, they're allowing it. You can say whatever you want against Israel there. And in fact, Israelis have been attacked on the platform, and maybe not in not a great way. I'm not saying that this should be allowed, but it is being allowed there. It's also full of government propaganda busters. We're told, here in the United States that the Chinese live terribly. They have no freedom. They hate us. They hate our way of life. Well, they're showing us for themselves that that's actually not true. And they're showing us that they think that it's us that lives under oppressive conditions. Watch this woman figuring that out for herself after some time on Red Note.
The Chinese said that Americans are not free because the American TikTok refugees asked the Chinese, what stereotypes do you have about us? And I'm thinking they're going to say, like, we're fat and we like junk food. No. They said that we think that we are free, but we are not, that we live under an oligarchy, and that we essentially live in a corporation. And we're fat.
Okay, so that's what the Chinese are saying they think about us. Here's another woman saying she's obsessed with these shopping halls, grocery shopping halls, showing that the Chinese have access to affordable food. Watch.
Listen, I didn't think that the culture shock of joining Red Note would be watching grocery hauls. Chinese grocery hauls are insane because they can actually afford food. You guys, what one woman, it would have cost me, oh my God. This is so sad. America is, I already knew, but it's like so sad. We're such a sad excuse for our country.
So they want
I'm finding this so interesting.
They want communism. That's what they'd rather have.
I don't think that's what they're saying. It's not a pro-communist message. They're just saying that we're told the Chinese have no money, they have no access, they have no freedom, that they hate us. And actually they do have access to affordable living. And they have good medical care that's affordable. Watch this one man point that out now that he's connected and can see how much we pay for just an ambulance service. Watch.
Hello, fellows. In my last video comments, some of you share your medical bill and that the cost of ambulance shocked me, man. Look at this, $9,000 for an ambulance and the insulin. That's like 3 months of income for an average American. And this, $900 just for an appointment and painkillers. In China, it only costs about $10. And this, in China, we never worry about the ambulance charges. Today, I will show you how much the ambulance costs in Shanghai, which is the most expensive city in China. Let's look at this table I made by using the official data. You guys can take a screenshot for later review. This is why some Chinese followers commented yesterday, it only costs around $50 in China for ambulance services. You know, those politicians should have taken care of your people first. At the end, salute to Luigi and wish the best to you all. Please follow me for more sharings.
$50, you guys, for an ambulance. $50. Can you imagine? Because they don't search the prices there. I paid $900 for a Tylenol the night I gave birth. $900 because of my medical insurance. What?
Well, that guy's saluting Luigi, the guy that shot.
I didn't catch that was Luigi.
Unless it's somebody
I'm sorry,
else.
I missed that. I thought it was someone. I thought it was a friend that he was exchanging information with. I apologize. I do not give a shout out to Luigi. Here's another, again, nice unintended message that's passing between the airwaves that our government absolutely doesn't want us to hear, is that the Chinese don't hate us. Watch this, man.
All right, what up, fellas? It's Nick again. Look, just one quick word before calling it a day. This is probably one of the saddest things I've read in the comment section in the past few days. That I've seen plenty of people saying, so after all these years, it turned out that you don't hate us. You Chinese people, you don't hate us Americans. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where does that even come from? You think that we hate you? That what you believed all these years? Is that something that your media has been feeding you? That we hate you? You believed it? Come on, you should have known better than that. We don't hate you. If anything, we don't like some of the decisions from your leadership, which you too are victim of. But why would we hate you? So, I can't believe I have to say this. No, we don't hate you. There you go.
So what do you think of that?
Well, that's uplifting. I mean, that's a message you could get behind, like Chinese people, like real Chinese people that aren't part of like the Chinese
we don't know this yet, right? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Because you're humping over there, and I don't like it. So tell me what you're humping about. You don't like this segment clearly, and you're. Can
I finish a thought?
Yeah,
please?
Do it.
For crying out loud, my throat is sore, and I'm trying to get I keep coughing, by the way. No, I like that. I like that message from these guys. I like the message that if human beings can talk to one another, it would be amazing to hear what North Koreans think of of Americans.
Yeah.
Right. If we were able to have that free back and forth conversation. As Donald Trump always talks about talking with other people, what's the harm in talking to other people, right? We can all come together and sort of share our differences, right? I think that's exciting. If in fact these people are legitimate, these are legitimate users and not like members of, some sort of the CCP or something, or they're part of the Chinese Communist Party in some larger capacity. I'm troubled by the tens of thousands of illegal Chinese immigrants who've poured into the United States, military-age men who are in the United States. That I'm deeply troubled about. We've covered that on the show. So if everything's so great and cushy inside of China, then why are we seeing this massive influx of illegal Chinese into the United States? I'm just curious about that. I would love, maybe they can have that dialogue too. That'd be interesting.
You're extrapolating something I'm not trying to say. I'm not saying their life is so awesome we should all move to China. I'm saying that these main government narratives that they are completely unhappy and oppressed and they, are starving may not be true, and that we may have more in common than less, that we all just want to feed our families and have access to affordable medical care. Not that China does it better or worse, but that we can see for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it'd be great for us to see.
You're making,
information is power.
Oh, sorry. My daughter, she explained it like this. She's like, a lot of people are going to Red Note because the government was like, well, we're going to try to keep you from, or try to keep this Chinese company from getting your information. And so we're going to take away something that you enjoy. And so people are just like, you know what? We'll just go give it directly to them. How about that? It's like an FU.
Yeah. Well, Fox News today was like, why would people go there? This is actually Chinese. And their pundits were like, these people don't care. They won't be told what to do. It is like a middle finger. And yes, we don't know that these people are not part of communist China propaganda. We don't know that, but we can sort of get on board with like, we don't hate you. Well, we don't hate you either. How about we don't want a war? That might be kind of nice, right?
Yeah. I just have a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, I worked closely with some Chinese individuals who I communicate regularly with, and I would ask them about their government. I'd ask them, they're like, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that on this platform. They're very scared. I mean, they're very scared of the censorship. They're very scared of what the government is monitoring, whether it's WeChat or WhatsApp or whatever else that they are able to have in China, and they're not able to communicate openly and honestly about it. And they're like, yeah, if I ever sit down and have lunch with you someday, I'll tell you, because they're just so terrified about their government. So I'm just kind of curious how they're able to sort of speak so freely on this Chinese app. Like, how is that possible? Don't you question that? Like they're under censorship controls. How are they able to speak so freely on this Chinese app like this?
What did you see that was... Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, I'm just going to say that I don't think they are. I don't think that anybody... Like the whole point of it from what my daughter was saying, and she has her finger on the pulse of her generation fairly well, and it has nothing to do with... It's not like that they think that Red Note is more free speech. I don't think that anybody's thinking that the people that are on Red Note can speak freely about the Chinese government, and there's just things they wouldn't bring up or couldn't bring up. The point is that the U.S. government said you can't do TikTok anymore because it's a Chinese company, and nobody believed that. None of her generation believed that. They all knew it had to do with the Free Palestine, and so they're literally going to. They're like, oh, if you're going to take away this thing because it's Chinese, well, this thing is clearly Chinese. Now, what are you going to do?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
We had the unintended consequence of making friends. Nothing I've shown you here is pro-communist government. It's like, well, I mean, European countries have cheaper ambulances than America. That's just the way it is. That's not pro-Chinese. That's anti-American establishment, right? And to say we don't hate you, that's not even pro-Chinese government. These are just human connections outside of government.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think, I agree with Philip's point on this, that's maybe the real story here, is that Americans were told by Congress that this is TikTok is Chinese, when the real story, as we've talked to Congressman Thomas Massie here on the show, is that it's because of the outrage against the genocide in Gaza. And it's because of the Israeli lobby that they were forced to get rid of TikTok, and they blamed it on China. So then all of these Americans are like, we know the real story. You're a bunch of effing idiots in Congress. You don't think we know what's really going on here? So you want us to, you're worried about a Chinese company? Fine. We'll go over to Red Note, a actual Chinese company that has Red Note, which is Red Book, which is like Mao's little red book in the freaking title, is a big FU.
And it's worth noting that the bill that passed that allows Congress to ban TikTok would allow them to ban Red Note too as soon as they turn their attention on
How long until that happens?
Right.
Like next week?
Yeah.
What happened to free speech in this country, though? Like, We can't use whatever apps we want, to be able to share information.
No, clearly
apparently not.
Clearly not. So,
yeah, no. Look at
some of the people in the chat were.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about
remember
that.
that? Like the Amazon where it was hosted, the Apple Store, everybody took it down for reasons that were never proven.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and someone in the chat says, well, Clayton, how do you know it's so bad in China? You're right, I don't. I mean, I'm just telling you what my friends who live in China, who are Chinese, were telling me about censorship.
My masseuse is Chinese, and she's like, she loves America. She's like, I would never go back there. She had to go back and visit, and she didn't even want to go back. She was just talking about how much she didn't like it there.
Well, you just did an interview with a Chinese woman who left and who wrote a book.
Yes, but she left decades ago. She has a very unique perspective. I think we should consider all perspectives. We have Carl Jha on the show all the time, who busts up a lot of these narratives about social credit score, the narratives about the Uyghurs we know has been myth busted. So I think we should all understand that we don't know what we don't know, right? And just sort of have some humility about it.
But we do know that the Israeli lobby pushed to get TikTok banned. That is a fact.
Yeah.
So we absolutely know that that's the case, and they tried to blame it on China. So again, that we absolutely do know. Someone in the chat just said, thank you for your super chat. Dad's Homebrew says, I don't think Clayton likes this segment.
Yeah, I don't like your attitude about this segment. So if that's what we're doing, we're married. I'm sorry.
Can I answer him for crying out loud? I love this segment because I think that this is what makes great this communication back and forth here. Like that's to me what's so great is like have a conversation back and forth and not agree on everything.
All right, but if we're allowed to huff and puff and blow your house down over somebody else's segment, then you just wait.
I'm not feeling
what we're allowed
well.
to do.
Need some water over here. Okay, some water.
Where's my fade to black button? I can't find my fade to black.
Water.